Welcome to For Love and Play. I'm matchmaker comic Elle Meisel. With me is comedians Keenan Weaver and Louie B. For Love and Play, the show about dating like a goddamn adult. We're going to discuss who to spend your time with for love or for play. Let's do it, boys.
This show contains adult content for entertainment purposes. Listener discretion is advised.
Not a doctor.
All right, thank you for listening. We're back with another For Love and Play. I'm your host, Keenan Weaver, here with my favorite people yet again, the Queen, Yael. What's going on, girl?
What's going on? Happy Saturday, everybody. How are you?
All right, and the Baron, Louis Frankfurt B.
It's Rutherford. Anyways, salam alaikum, all my brothers. May peace be upon you. Praise his name.
Well, thank you for that. We have a very special episode for you guys today. We're going to be talking all things poly. Before we get into that, Louis, tell the people how they could join in on the conversation.
This is what I need you true believers to do. Please send us your questions at forloveandplay@gmail.com, and that's the number 4, love and play, spelled out. Just the number 4, love and play @gmail.com, which is also the same the screen name for our Twitter. Our Twitter handle is For Love and Play. You could tweet to us, or please like us and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/forloveandplay. Take it away, Kanan.
And actually, I'm gonna slide that over to the Queen today because she has a very special friend, a special guest that's with us today. So, Queen, can you introduce our special guest?
Yes, we have what I like to call a Tinder find. I actually met a very interesting gentleman on on Tinder, and I thought, you know what? He's such a cool guy. He's so nice, and he has such a positive attitude. I thought, shit, let's get him on the show and talk about his lifestyle. We have Adam Finch Buxbaum of Northern California.
Friend zone a person. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
No. Mm-hmm. In all fairness, no. Before we let's explain why. Adam is what I like to call the danger zone. He's this is my shit. He's a Jewish boy with a fro and a schnoz. Hot. So I have to be very careful when someone else's plane flies onto my radar. You know what I mean? So sometimes you want to shoot it out the sky, but sometimes you're like, nah, I'd rather use you as a resource. And I thought he was lovely, interesting, and could articulate a way of life that I think is very interesting. We see it trending all over the place. The polyamory movement. This has been an amazing way for people to find love in their life who couldn't find it before, to make it work for them. Or, I've also heard to the negative, but today we're going to focus on the positive and tell people how it's done and the different ways that people would maneuver a polyamorous relationship.
So, yes, I would like to put in the danger zone alert real quick.
Okay.
Lana.
Thanks, Yael.
What? Danger zone.
Danger zone. There you go. That was from Archer. All right. So, anyways,
gotta be quicker with those. All right. So, Adam.
Yeah. Hi.
Before off air, we were talking about the different types of poly. Can you kind of maybe explain just to our listeners the basis of it? Someone who might not know anything about it.
Okay, so I guess I'll start with what polyamory is not. What it's not is monogamy. Polyamory is basically the umbrella term for any type of relationship that doesn't fall as strictly monogamous, two partners together with nobody else involved in the relationship. And so that has a lot of smaller facets, but it covers things like open relationships and open marriages, swingers and people who have, sexual exploits as their hobby, closed relationships of 3 or 4 or more people, where having one-night stands is not their thing and they're all fidelis to each other. So yeah, anything that's not one man, one woman, or one man, or one person is in the umbrella of polyamory.
Okay, so how did you kind of dip your toes into this type pool? Like, when was the first interaction where you felt like, okay, I want to really pursue this type of lifestyle?
When I was 19, turning 20, my girlfriend at the time actually floated the idea to me. I had just taken a 3-month-long exchange trip to London, and we had discussed the idea of, well, if you went out and made out with somebody else at a party or whatever, that would be okay with me. And I got home, and she had read a book that I'd like to recommend that everybody read. It's called The Ethical Slut by Dossie Easton and Catherine List, and it was kind of an introduction and manual to all types of relationships that were not monogamous. And so I read it, and all of the things sounded really interesting to me and sort of applicable to a lot of my, relationship goals and wants too. So we tried it, and I've been working on myself as a polyamorous human being ever since, even though that's like 2 or 3 girlfriends ago.
Okay, so 2 or 3 girlfriends ago. So since then, were every one of those girlfriends part of that poly lifestyle? Did you have to convert some of them? How did that process go?
In general, yes. I mean, I'm open about the fact that I'm not into monogamy, and I'm not really trying to start dating anybody that is into monogamy because I don't want to be misleading or anything like that or have expectations that can't be met. And so, like, all of my flings and relationships have been ostensibly polyamorous, and some have been in practice more or less polyamorous as actual circumstances provide, because just because you're okay with seeing other people doesn't mean you're always constantly meeting your other heart's desire around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So, Yael, what was your... You guys met on Tinder. What was your attraction to it when you swiped?
Well, what I actually liked about his profile is it actually stays in line with what Tinder is. Now, like a constant complaint that I hear is like, this is a hookup app. True. Tinder did start off with the intention to be a hookup app as an offshoot of Grindr. So I thought it was hilarious that if I had my phone with me, unfortunately I don't, but I would read it. It was just very honest. This is my lifestyle. This is what I'm about. And this is a hookup app, and I'm here basically to do that and to make friends. And I thought I could fall in the friend category. You can get an idea. Read it, yeah. I thought it was interesting.
American Jew, liberal hippie traveler, polyamorous ethical slut, California-raised traveler, Grateful Dead, rainbow gatherings, and alternative community, seeking friends and lovers wherever I am. Yes, this is a hookup app, and yes, I use it as one.
Okay, so I got two questions for you, Adam, then. You mentioned the book again, which I think is great. I want to definitely probably check that out. It seems to make a differential between what is the difference between being poly and the things that you've learned from this book and the seriousness of it, because I feel like most dudes don't go out and buy books about relationships, let alone read them. So what's the difference between learning about this poly lifestyle versus a guy who just can't stay faithful in a monogamous relationship, or a guy who just quote unquote wants to be a player or a pimp?
I think that that's a really important question and distinction to make, and I think that the solid biggest differences are communication and honesty. I think that the person that can't stay faithful to his partner maybe isn't monogamous naturally, but they're afraid of losing their partner if they're open with that, and so they're deceitful and unfaithful. You can still cheat when you're in a polyamorous relationship. Cheating would be being with someone else either outside of the agreements of your relationship, or being with someone else and lying about it, or not being honest about it. And the term for that in the poly community is non-consensual polyamory.
Huh.
Ooh.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go on. Oh, I was going to say, so I would say that my advice to the person who finds that they can't be faithful to their partner, they should ask themselves if they still really love their partner, and if they do, then maybe they should consider whether or not their relationship might be better off if they changed some of the rules or boundaries rather than being in a cycle of, like, deceit.
That's really interesting, I think, that you brought that up. That's something that I found to be the case. I've met polyamorous people in my day, don't get me wrong, that I've never invited them on the show, and I'll tell you why. I did not get the feeling, one of the things to get a spot on our show is whatever it is, the three of us have to believe you. You know what I mean? We have to believe that you are on the right side of the coin of the whatever the hell you're doing. And I really that was a different vibe from Adam than anybody else. I thought, you know what, this is a person who's taken time, who I don't believe you have a partner that you don't have a genuine care for, right? I mean, if I'm reading it the right way.
Oh, I'm very much in love with my girlfriend.
I was saying, it seems like, though, even the other partners that you take on, these are not a collection of, God forgive me, hoes. These are people that mean something to you. Maybe your partner, she means the most. I guess you could say maybe it's Queen Bee. But I didn't get the vibe that this is just someone looking to chase tail and blame it on polyamory. I actually appreciated the thought and the effort put into maintaining the functionality and quality of the lifestyle.
I mean, that being said, it's not like I don't go out and chase tail, but I usually chase polyamorous tail with the understanding of what my situation is.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, so
I'm saying there's no deception in there.
how is that relationship and the agreement between you and your girlfriend for your purposes of still being on Tinder? Because that's like the normal society says once you get in a girlfriend, you gotta delete your Tinder account, or vice versa, right?
Actually, I didn't get my Tinder account until after I started dating my girlfriend.
How did that?
We've been together for almost 3 years, and Tinder is a little bit newer than that to me.
Okay. So, okay, let me ask this question. It might sound dumb. It's probably the obvious. It has an obvious answer, but so, you're free to date or sleep with other women, correct?
Yeah.
Is she free to date and sleep with other men?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is a follow-up question. What kind of mindset do you have? Because most guys will be like a little insecure about that, or like, no.
It's a thing to constantly work with, and yes, I absolutely get insecure sometimes when she goes out on dates with other guys, and it's all very situation contextual, If they have something that I know really appeals to her that I feel like I can't offer as much, I might get a little bit jealous and insecure, but the other side of the coin is that those things that your regular primary partner can't provide for you that you need to be fulfilled and be happy are like the things that are most important to try to find with other people, and so I work on, and it's a constant practice, converting my jealousy into compersion. And compersion is like a poly-specific word that's like the inside out of jealousy. It's training yourself to feel satisfaction and turned on and the serotonin and dopamine rush of intimacy at the thought that your partner is happy with somebody else, rather than jealousy at the thought that they're happy with someone else.
Mm-hmm. But wouldn't you be afraid that, let's say she meets another dude that can fulfill her in every single solitary way? I mean, don't you have that constant fear that she just won't come back?
No, because she's not monogamous, and so even if she finds a nice guy that can do everything for her, I know that she's still in love with me, and so I'm confident that she'll come back to me. Honestly, if she found somebody that was like so much better for her than me, that she felt like I wasn't even worth being with anymore, well, then that guy's probably right for her, but I don't think that that's necessarily something that I'm worried about happening.
So, Louis, let me challenge that question too, because I think that insecure is real. I think having that fear of does she find another man, or does whatever the other partner, does this person find another partner who is better than me in every way? My question to you is, does that fear not exist in monogamous relationships?
Me or him?
Of course it does.
To Louis.
Oh, yeah, of course it does.
So why is that something that we worry about when we think of
because
with relationships?
Because with a monogamous I can't say that. Why can't I say words today? In that type of relationship where it's just you and them, it's frowned upon for her to look elsewhere until maybe she breaks up with you first. I mean, but she has the freedom to explore.
I mean, if I could jump in, I think that that's true in a lot of ways, but a lot of the subtext is in a monogamous relationship, a girl can't explore other people sexually, whether she may or may not be attracted to them. And in a polyamorous relationship, potentially they might find someone that's more sexually fulfilling than you, which is like the most basest of insecurities that I feel like a lot of people face. And so in that regard, I definitely know that sleeping with one girl doesn't make me forever not want to sleep with another girl. That's not really a thing that has that much grounding in reality, because it's not necessarily hierarchical. People have all of these complex advantages and disadvantages to their personality and their physical facets, and it's never a one-to-one comparison that you can do.
So I have a question to slightly shift gears. I was recently in a conversation with a young lady whose ex-boyfriend was trying to push a poly lifestyle, not holistically. So I think the gist was he wanted to sleep with other women, but she couldn't sleep with other men. So he wasn't like fully enlightened as you are, but
that kind of just sounds like a controlling relationship that I wouldn't want to see somebody in personally.
Right. So that's where I was getting at. What is the if this guy should be partaking in a poly lifestyle, what were his mistakes in just this completely arbitrary third account take I gave you on this relationship?
I mean, if he hadn't been her ex, I might say we don't know that he's making any mistakes at all. This may be something that satisfies both of them. However, if she was unhappy about it, I mean, mistake number one is not having equal amounts of communication both ways in terms of what makes each other comfortable and uncomfortable, what our conscious and unconscious expectations are for our relationship choices. Like, you don't have to be on equal ground if the couple of you or the three of you don't want to be, but I think you have to be like very cogent and cognizant about what your agreements with each other are. And if they find that they're hurting your feelings somewhere in the middle of trying them out, you can always renegotiate the rules, but having the conversation, I think, may be something that they missed.
And is this something that should take place like up front, like how you have it on your Tinder profile? This is very out in the open before someone even speaks to you. Is that something if you don't meet on Tinder and you meet a young lady, let's say before the main girlfriend, and you're getting ready to get a new girlfriend, where do you introduce that this is your lifestyle?
It's hard to say, and that's a really personal choice. You know, I don't know if it's an inappropriate parallel to make, but I almost feel like it's a choice about when to tell somebody that you're a transgendered person along the line of meeting them and going on the first date with them. Like, it really is based on the context. If you feel like you might want to take the relationship to a level where it would only be prudent to be honest with you about what your status is, I try to be upfront about it, but that's because I'm like out of the closet, quote unquote, about being poly. A lot of people who are in a more professional setting, have coworkers or families that might not approve, are kind of in the closet to everyone except for their close friends that are also involved in the poly community.
Okay. So I'll give a personal account for this. The research department for our guest, sent me out to try to see what I can learn about this community. And one of the things I saw over and over, I looked at like I saw about triad relationships. And I also went to look at like some swinger type parties. And one thing that I found difficult is a lot of the groups that I saw specifically said no single male.
Right. And so that is the difficulty, and I think that it may be fairly obvious why, because if they didn't have those rules, then there would be an awful lot of single males descending on all of the swinger clubs trying to pick up on all of the cute, kinky girls. And it may be sexist, but it's a thing that allows a lot more security amongst the culture. There are a lot of ones that say, like, couples, $40, single women free, single men $100, and it's to try to keep like a gender ratio parity, like fairly equal. There are places where the rules are different. There are a lot more places where the rules are different in the queer community. I think that a lot of the mainstream swinger community is more focused on heterosexual men and hetero or bisexual women, and so they try to promote a lot more female participation in those things, which is problematic, but like that's the way it is right now. And so, you'll see another term if you were looking into the triad thing, which is a unicorn and unicorn hunting. And a unicorn is a term in the poly community for a single bisexual girl. It's usually the girl that couples are seeking to add to their threesome. And the term unicorn hunters usually refers to a couple that's seeking a unicorn for their threesome, and it's kind of discouraged for people to do that in a lot of circles because the discourse is that it's about like a stable relationship trying to have an objectified sex object to add to their relationship rather than seeking an equal partner.
Yeah, that's why most of the people I've spoken to, because like I said, to get you on the show, I have to believe you. I'm not going to give you a forum to talk about anything if I think you're full of shit. Usually that's been what I've found. People that are actually committed, I don't think they're committed at all to this lifestyle, but like the idea of having a third person to come in and entertain. that's swinging. I don't know how that's polyamory.
Well, there's both, right? Like there's polyamorous relationships that are swingers, and there's non-polyamorous relationships that are swingers. They're not really subcategories of each other. They're two different communities that have a lot of intersection. Just like the swinger community and the BDSM kink community are not the same thing, but there's lots of crossover.
Right. I mean, because most of the people, when we first did this show about a year ago, when we do street interviews, we ran into a polyamorous couple that lived in New York and in Europe. And I'll tell you straight out, this guy is not into this lifestyle. There's nothing you could say to me or pay me to believe this guy is into this lifestyle. She is, and he does it as these are the terms and conditions that come along with you, and I accept them. But I don't like this part of that contract. That was very clear.
Right. And I remember that couple.
Yeah. He had no game.
But is it
the game of a pair of socks?
Is it that he had a lack of game, or that you really picked up that he wasn't about this? Like, that's
really
what I'm
picked up this guy's not about this life.
Right. So that's what I'm trying.
I'm like,
to
you're
find
doing
out
this to comply.
Is how does someone get into it? Like, how do you
safeguard yourself from these people who are doing something to make you happy? For example, if I were to have gone, you're my type, boo. You could have closed this deal. I'm serious. And but the good part about
the first thing you said was, I'm not interested in hooking up with you, and I respect that.
Right. Because I'm not going to, I look at it, I can appreciate what you're saying. You're my vibe, and you have something to offer, and you seem like a nice person. The energy surrounding this individual seems nice and pleasant. And walking in the door, there's no bullshit. He's not derogatory. He's not, I thought this is a pleasant representation of what this lifestyle is about. And so seldom do I get the pleasure of meeting someone who would actually be a pleasant representation. It's more or less people looking for threesomes to have a good time. And the girl's maybe 20% into it. It's something being done as like a gift or something. That goes on a lot. And I don't really think it's fair to give that respect to polyamory. That's complying with the demands of another person.
Well, actually, I find that those numbers are almost flipped to a certain extent when, like, maybe the girl's only into it 20% when the guy's proposing a situation where it's mostly about him sleeping with other girls, no strings attached. But I find that a lot more girls are actually into the idea, and guys are a lot more knee-jerk objecting to the idea of actually having a relationship with another partner. As soon as the girl expresses that she's starting to have feelings for the other guy she's been sleeping with, a lot of guys find the jealous feelings they didn't think they had and want to scoot back out of the agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me personally, I've always said I'm not really into the poly because I don't necessarily want to be in a relationship with just one person. So to have two is just that's a difficult to juggle for my level of attention span. But
I mean, and speaking of attention span, like the time juggling is another constant issue with poly relationships, is that if you're trying to make time for other people, that's necessarily less time that you have with your partner unless you're all together. And so if you're like, your schedules and your lives are already juggling and stretched, that can be a sore point of contention. Oh, I haven't seen you for days, but you're spending time with so-and-so.
So how does we were supposed to have your girlfriend on as a guest as well, and we'll keep trying to get her, but if not, we'll just have a follow-up episode with the both of you. How to speak to that issue? How does that is that resolved just like any other relationship? You got to try to resolve your issues, and what really pops up in these particular relationships other than just the time one?
One thing that pops up is it's not necessarily a specific issue, but a specific type of issue, which is that we'll find that we get triggered and our feelings hurt by really small, insignificant things that we didn't necessarily expect to trigger, like waking up in the morning and seeing our partner texting the other person next to you in bed. Shouldn't be a big deal, but then can be like kind of weird and triggering. But the solution is like you said, with most other relationship issues, is just talking it out and dealing with understanding that like your feelings are valid, but they don't necessarily translate to you must do these things to accommodate my feelings. It's more like let's express how we feel and see if we can reach common ground.
I'm trying to think of like how to infuse my personal stories into this. I remember like there was one point in my life that I really felt like like I was a perfect boyfriend number two, because I wouldn't give number one type attention, but I would love to just join in, like tag in every once in a while.
Uh-huh.
Is that something that you guys find in that community where they're, maybe male or female, people that don't want to be fully invested in 100% things that a relationship entail, but does like to experience it every once in a while?
I think that this is one that I have a little bit less personal experience with, because as long as I've been poly, there have been actually not relatively few instances where me or my partner have been like consistently dating somebody else and having it be an alternative relationship. We've had a lot of like 2 or 3 dates or one night stands or hooking up with old friends, but I would say that there are different types of people in the poly community, some that prefer to like be primary partners and some that prefer to be the other guy or the other girl because it's, less pressure on them and they still get all of the benefits of being affectionate and intimate with somebody. My girlfriend went out on a couple of dates with a guy who says he doesn't mind being the side dude. And so that's cool,
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like that relationship where in the polyamorous community where you have quote unquote your main, your king and your queen, and then there is a third that is part of the relationship, not just a one night stand, not just like a series of different threesomes, but someone who is actually a part of this relationship.
So I would say that like there's it seems a little bit problematic what you just proposed, because it sounds like a triad where one of the 3 partners is less important than the other 2 partners. And that's something that like is the problem and the cause for a lot of the discourse about the unicorn hunter syndrome and like how that can be harmful to a relationship. There's a couple different types of, we're going to talk about different types of poly relationships. There are 2 types of 3-person relationships. One of them is the V formation, and if you draw a V and put a point on each of the corners, you see 3 people and 2 of them are connected to one person. And that's the person that has 2 partners, but they're not into each other. That's like I have my girlfriend and I have another girlfriend. Then there's the triad, and that's all 3 points connected. It looks like a triangle, and that's because all 3 partners are romantically connected with each other. In my personal opinion, the healthiest triads are ones where they're all on equal ground, and a lot of the time triads become problematic or difficult when a long-standing stable couple tries to add a third partner into their relationship. There's a lot of like third wheel feelings that happen, and a lot of nurturing communication has to happen to make those things integrate healthily. Otherwise, the third wheel often just detaches because it wasn't working out.
So with yours, do you have a level of interaction with, and this goes both ways, do you have a level of interaction with whoever she's dating and vice versa?
Personally, I have to say that at least in our relationship, I've been really shy to interact with anyone that my girlfriend has been dating. It's some of my like insecurity, jealousy feelings, which is not that like I don't want to meet them in theory, but I'm afraid that in reality I might act weird or be rude or pick something out to judge about them, and like I don't want to interfere with my girlfriend's relationships or with her game or anything like that. But I'm working on it, and I think that like being comfortable with having each other's partners in each other's lives and all being friends is something that is part of my ideal relationship, and it's part of the process for us. She's been a lot more cavalier about meeting girls that I've been intimate with, and is pretty respectful about it. Also has her insecurities. We talk about them and, deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I like how you admit to the insecurity. On the flip side, I think I would be insecure to have an arbitrary person that I haven't met. So you spoke about like, sometimes having a trigger where you wake up in the morning and your partner is texting someone else. Me, I think not knowing who that someone else is more of a problem than me knowing the person.
And that's a super valid point, and I could see even using that as a mental tool to help myself get past my blockage about meeting other people.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like my take would be, all right, there's someone in her life, and is this a safe person for her? Whether it's my judgment call or not,
Well, so that's something that I like specifically like want to avoid trying to do, honestly, because to me, like, that idea itself sounds really like paternalistic. Like, I don't trust my girlfriend to make safe decisions for herself, and I do, and I don't want her to think that I have to approve of anyone else that she picks to be with.
Yeah, I want to take out the approval of it and the trust. It's more of just a instinctual protection when you're in a relationship. It really has nothing to do to the romance of it. It's like even Louis, we're not romantically involved, but if there's someone that I've met and I would have a maybe a red flag popped up that I see that he doesn't, I would say that as a friend, right?
I would hope so.
Right, so I definitely like feel those instinctual urges too, and that protectiveness is one reason that like I don't necessarily want to allow myself to get caught up in my knee-jerk reactions and be the protective guy who's like there to make sure that this guy's going to treat his girlfriend right, because like to me I still get this weird image in my head about a father oiling his rifle while his daughter goes out on her first date, you know?
Okay. Huh. That's pretty interesting of how all the intricacies of these type of relationships are. And the funny thing is, as we continue to talk, I feel like I was definitely interested in it, but I feel like the reason I'm single is just because I hate complications. It has nothing to do with the type of relationship, because this seems just as complicated. And
it's more. Every person that you add to a relationship makes it exponentially more complicated because everyone's feelings are involved.
Right. And I think the feelings of it is why I don't do relationships. It has nothing to do with the actual romance, connections, things of that nature. It's really, when you boil down to it, feelings that I can't stand. I'm like stoic. Stoic is the word, right?
Now, I did want to bring up another relationship style, which like is not one that I practice, but one that I wholeheartedly approve of within the polyamory movement, which is the relationship anarchist. And that is a specific contradiction to the idea that we were talking about having a primary partner or king, queen, bee. And it basically says, I'm a free, autonomous individual. I reserve the right to love as many people as I want in as many different ways as I want in as many different levels of intimacy. And I don't place one of them over the other. I have a different type of relationship with every single person in my life. Some of them are lover relationships. Some of them are parental relationships. Some of them are friend relationships. Some of them transgress all these boundaries and are personalized relationships that we agree on the rules for. And like that's a style where people might have many different partners with many different rules between them, but don't necessarily place one over the other. It's their self and self-growth that's the most important part.
And that actually, as you describe it, that seems the most natural to me. That seems
that's the one that most resembles being single, except that you're really open about everyone that you're dating.
Right, but that even outside of like coining the term, right? That to me seems like a natural human interaction, because we do have different relationships with different people, and how that is defined is by your interaction with said other person. But what we end up doing is society starts putting different boundaries around, quote unquote, these types of relationships, and you tend to then flow towards what society originally told you versus what naturally would have happened.
Right, like a lot of primary relationships are like, this is modeled on your typical heteronormative monogamous marriage type relationship with a few tweaks to the rules. And the relationship anarchists are a lot more like, well, hey, this is love capitalism, all's fair in love and war, I'm my own person.
Right. That one seems like that has a light bulb over its head for me. Like it just makes sense to how I view the world, not even just with relationships of romance, just in general. I feel like that's what human communities were at first before we started putting societal norms on things. And then we said you mapped over how it's somewhat similar to a LGBT community type umbrella, and maybe this is just another letter to add to the acronym. But I feel like that whole community is fighting against just whatever societal norms are. It's not about per se the relationships. It's about that allow me to be whoever I am as an individual.
Right, and there's a lot of intersection between the movements, you know, between the trans movement and the queer movement and the poly movement. And there's also places where it doesn't intersect, where there's like heteronormative problems within the poly community, and those are things that can be like addressed and tackled. But like, I think in general, being part of being a good progressive radical ally is acknowledging where your allies meet and what things you can stand in solidarity together with.
Now, are there like, for the poly community, are there like areas, geographical areas, specifically talking to America at the moment, that this is more prevalent?
I would argue that in most big cities that have more millennials living in them, it's more common. Places like San Francisco, Seattle, New York City, just because like of the high population density, there are a lot more people into creating their poly communities and their kink communities and their meet and greets and their play parties. Whereas when you live out in the country or in smaller communities, it can be really hard to find the other freaks around you. And so they like get to be smaller, tighter communities that are a lot more underground.
So, Adam, if someone, let's say, you have a couple, they're interested in sexual experimentation, they know that they want to stay committed to one another, but let's say they do want, for the sake of spicing up their sex life between the two of them, would there be a chivalrous way of inviting a third party in, and what should that treatment actually be? Because let's say this couple, they don't necessarily want her to join their relationship. They don't necessarily want to sleep with this individual, let's say, on a regular basis. What would be the proper ways?
Now, do they have a girl in mind, or are they talking about the possibility of seeking somebody that they don't know yet?
Like, let's say someone's seeking that they don't know, or even if they're considering someone but haven't made the initial invitation, let's say.
I would say that, like, one of the more useful things they could do is look and see if there's any local munches in their community. And a munch is like a non-threatening, not particularly sexualized, like, cocktail hour where poly people in the community go to meet each other, have drinks, have conversation, and maybe make future dates, or at least, like, make friends with each other. And so, like, I would say that would be a good non-threatening way for the couple to meet other people who are used to examining and navigating the poly world and, like, talk to them and see if they hit it off with anybody charismatically and be open about what they're looking for. I think that probably would be a slower route but yield more positive results than, say, putting up an ad on Craigslist.
Gotcha.
And I've tried to I tried to draw a line between just having threesomes to poly being, you know, about the relationships. I just know from my experiences, like, I've had threesomes, but I would never identify as being poly. Is that right to draw that line?
Sure, that's totally fine. I mean, you know, another thing that a couple could do if they were more interested in just having a sexual relationship with somebody is that they could go to a play party together and see if they meet anybody that's interested in going into the back room and fooling around. And, you know, or see what their comfort level is and hang out and watch other people do kinky things if they don't feel like it.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like seeking that, it's like to go about seeking it is weird. I know for me personally, the threesomes that I've had has been stumbled upon. It was no credit to me at all. Like, I'm not giving myself the credit. One was introduced by the female who wanted to bring another female in. And then the other one, I think, I had a female friend that just bagged a girl, and they were doing it in my apartment, and I just happened to be there, like, because it was at my apartment.
And then they invited you in? What in the hell goes on at Keenan's house?
I mean, it's just, it's my house, so yeah, I got invited.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm. House rules at Keenan's house. If you're gonna be having sex, Keenan gets to join in.
I mean, look, sexual encounters happen in all different types of ways, and I'm not one to judge, like, how they get initiated. Lots of us have had sex that we didn't expect to have that night, and lots of us had sex that we meticulously planned on having that night. And so, yeah, you can stumble into threesomes or you can seek them out.
So so the question is, like, for someone getting started, what is the seek out to the poly lifestyle? Like, what is that process? I think that's what Yael was trying to get at. Like, how do you kind of start this conversation?
Some of it's kind of nerdy. Well, the easiest ways are, like, signing up for a website that has a poly community, or, like, going out to a month and going to arbitrarily meet the other people. Like, unless you already know somebody who's involved in the poly community, in which case they can totally, like, be your a bridge to that world, but it's kind of like breaking into any community. Like if you want to break into the Rocky Horror community, you have to just go to a midnight show. You can't stay at home watching the DVD over and over again. You just have to arbitrarily find other strangers that you didn't know before and make friends with them.
Yeah. What was your last question? Oh, right.
Actually, we have audio. We have audio of Keenan walking in on the two ladies.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Yep.
So
that's exactly what happened too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a surprise when I walk in the room.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh, and we also have audio from what they said.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
All right. So to recap, I guess this probably should have been said up front, but if you could just maybe explain the different types, the names that you were going to go over before we get out of here.
Right. So I'll go over like the basic threesomes, foursomes, and moresomes that are kind of described in this way in the Ethical Slut. The threesomes I briefly mentioned to you. There's the V where, one person has two partners. And then there's the triangle where three people are in a three-person relationship together. For foursomes, there can be different iterations, but there's two main types, and that's the quad or the Z or the N. And if all of you at home would like to draw these shapes on a piece of paper, they'll be easier to understand. A quad is four dots that are all connected, so they look like a square with an X in them. And that's four people that are all in a loving relationship and live together communally, and they're all equally committed to each other. The alternative to that is the Z or the N, and if you draw that and put dots on each of the corners and at either of the ends, you can see that two dots are connected to each other and one other dot each. And that would be like if me and my girlfriend were primary partners and I had another partner on the side and she had another partner on the side, and those partners weren't involved in the greater relationship. And finally, I guess with moresomes, you can draw any lines you want and any number of dots, but more than four people often becomes a sort of like a pack or a community or a tribe, different words for the same idea of like multiple people that are in intertwined sexual and romantic relationships with each other. I think that these are a lot more common to find in intentional community spaces like communes or farms or private property where people have decided to take all of their lovers and move in together and maybe raise their kids together.
Well, Adam, I really want to thank. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, Tinder has worked out great for this show.
Tinder has done wonders for this show, but I think it also goes to like what I talk about all the time about not burning bridges, building them when the opportunity arises itself.
I do think that I want to commend the two of you, Yael and Adam, for that Tinder interaction, because I feel like most people are so closed up in their walls that they're not open to any type of interaction. So what I mean is, what I picture is most people reading Adam's profile would be like, F that, swipe, right? And then on Yael's part, when she sent the original message to you about I'm not into that lifestyle, but and you looked at it as it being honest and then continue the conversation, most people would close off at just that point because it's quote unquote not what they were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can blame that on both I'm new to the city and I'm a loudmouth, so I'm happy to talk to anybody and for a long time.
I think that's something that you two have in common. Not the new to the city, but the other part.
No, I think it's good. I think it shows we can build bridges anywhere we go.
Yes.
Yael, anything to promote?
We still have at ForiaPleasure.com our promo code for 10% off for those medically and legally licensed in the state of California. For the number 4, LOVEANDEPLAY. Continue to share, download, like, and subscribe. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Yael Meisels, iHeartRadio for Love and Play. And save 10% on Foria Pleasure for the bedroom and Foria Relief for menstrual cramping and pain.
Louis, what you got for the people?
As always, you can listen to my personal podcast, The Crotch Shot Radio Show, hosted by me, Louis Rutherford B. This week I had androgynous supermodel Rain Dove, and we were talking about the North Carolina transgendered bathroom debate. And it got really political because I had someone on who was a libertarian, and we talked about what powers does the federal government have to make the states, make other genders, whatever, use whatever bathrooms that there are. And so it was a really interesting episode. So check it out. Also, I will be performing July 5th at Comic Strip Live on 2nd Avenue. Please, check me out on Facebook.com/LouisBComedy for more details coming soon. Take it away, Keenan.
All right. Everybody knows my information can be updated and will be found on my website, www.keenanweaver.com. That's KENANWEAVER. Northeast, I'm hitting all of June, so Boston area, Rhode Island, some parts of Vermont, look out for that. And then Southeast tour is going to be happening about July, August. So I'm starting with Charlotte. Hopefully there'll be bathrooms down there for me. And every Sunday night, New York Comedy Club, 9 p.m. Check me out. As always, keep loving, keep playing.